Hello and welcome to the Fit and Free podcast. This is a podcast for women who want it all, to feel strong and confident in their bodies, as well as enjoying a sneaky mug on a Friday night. I'm an exercise physiologist and sports nutritionist, here to teach you how to achieve your body goals without food and your body controlling your life. So let's jump in. You are in for an absolute treat. Welcome back to another ep of the Fit and Free Potty. Oh, I'm so excited to share this episode with you all because I know you're going to get so much freaking out of it. So I've got a really special guest coming onto the show today, and that is Sheri. And Sheri is a food relationship coach helping women all over the world heal their relationship with food and, I think most importantly, themselves, to really quit their binge-restrict cycles and find lasting food freedom so they can absolute thrive. She's a wealth of knowledge and we dive deep into so many things today. So without further ado, let's jump into the episode. Sheri, thank you so much for jumping on the podcast with me today. I'm so freaking excited. So I would love it if you could tell us a little bit about yourself and what led you to become a food relationship coach and a binge eating specialist.
I am so excited to be here. Thank you so much. So yes, I am a food relationship and binge eating coach. What inspired me to sort of enter this space is because I also used to be a really heavy binge eater. And when I was really struggling with my relationship with food and I was stuck in yo-yo diets, I saw nutritionists and dietitians and I tried keto, Atkins, no sugar, low carb. I tried everything. And I essentially stayed stuck in that cycle for about 5 years. And I was overweight and felt as though it was completely a me problem. And I felt completely alone and didn't understand how to actually break free from it. And I eventually sort of went away from all of these different sort of people, from these sort of like quote unquote the right people. And I really dove into the science behind binge eating. I really started grafting on intuitive eating principles, coming back to my body, letting go of diet culture, and grafted on self-development work, mindset work, learned how to deal with my emotions, and realized that there was like all of this stuff that I had never been taught, that no one had actually guided me to start doing or start looking at, that was actually the solution to why I was binge eating. And that's when I sort of healed my relationship with food. I lost that 30 kilos. I came back to just being in a really calm, stable relationship with myself, my body, with my food. And that's where I started realizing, like, how had I never been taught the stuff that I had learned? And why had it taken me even 5 years of essentially eroding my confidence, eroding my body's natural cues, really just fighting with my impulses, fighting with my mind, missing out on so much of my life in my early 20s. And I just could not understand why I'd never been taught that. And that's when I started being really overt about that on my Instagram and started really just kind of speaking more about it from a place of just wanting to, because people were sort of asking me, like, you look so different. What have you done? Like, you actually look really healthy. And then I started really feeling as though people, they wanted to know. And I've always been a very open person. So I started to share. And then so many people started flooding my DMs and started sort of responding to my stories, being like, oh my God, this is me. And I started realizing that people were finding me and wanting to just understand what my journey had looked like. And that's where I really understood that I was actually not alone in this, and that so many women struggle, right? And that's where I started going, like, what if I actually entered this space and I actually used everything that I had learned, that was science-backed, that was also from my own personal experience, then to actually change other women's lives and to help them get unstuck. And then the more that I coached in that space, the more that my Instagram and my business grew. And then now it's, that was 5 years ago, and it's now my full-time job, and I love it.
Wow. That's so wild.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing that with us, because I know a lot of my listeners are definitely going to be able to resonate with your story, and because it's such a common thing. It's like so many people have tried the diets, the meal plans, the dietitians, the things, but I truly believe, and I love your approach so much is because it's very similar to mine in terms of it's more of a holistic approach. And that's why I always talk about the importance of having 50% strategy and 50% mindset, because if you're not doing the actual mindset work in behind healing your relationship with food, acknowledging your emotions, coming back into your body, like learning how to trust yourself again, it's like you're not actually going to ever be able to have food freedom, even though so many people are promising food freedom by, following their meal plan. So I love that, you are able to utilize your own experience and also everything that you've learned, and also be able to take all the things that didn't work to cultivate this really beautiful approach. So I love to see it, and I love watching you online. It's so amazing. So I really want to dive deep into all things binge eating, because again, I know a lot of my listeners do struggle in this space. So binge eating is such like a big thing, right? And it's so broad, and it really does look different for everyone. And I know there's going to be a lot of people out there who probably don't even realize what they're doing isn't even normal. So I want to bring this conversation in terms of what is binge eating? Like, what can binge eating look like? Because I know that a lot of people throw it, I just have a cheat day, or I'm good Monday to Friday. But for me, I'm like, babes, that's just a big binge restrict cycle. So I would love it if you could dive deep and explain to the audience, like, what binge eating can look like.
100%. And you're so right, Laura, because it does look different for everyone. And I think first thing I want to say is, like, people, I think, can sometimes be scared of labeling their behavior as a binge. Like this idea of like binge eating disorder. I feel like it's a pity, because people almost get scared about using that term. But even if we, interchangeably can just be like, it's like these moments that you essentially just feel really out of control with food, or you, as I always say on my Insta stories, it's like when you hit the fuck up button. But it's not just like an I don't care. It's I really, like, you essentially almost, you feel as though you give up your sense of discipline. You feel like you give up your sense of control. And it's not coming from a place of like, I don't care, right? It's like coming from a place of like, this kind of feels like my only option. Yeah. And so essentially what that can look like is, sort of specifically with binging, it can look like just having a huge amount of food in a very short amount of time. And that can then, on sort of two different veins there, it can look as though you're sort of quite conscious, and you know that you're pushing past your point of fullness and you're still going. And there's a part of your voice in your mind that's kind of telling you like, I know that I should stop, but you're just kind of like a little bit more, a little bit more. And you're sort of feeling this internal push and pull battle of, I know that I should stop. I know that I'm full. I don't want any more. But then there's another part of you, it's like this little toddler inside of you that just is literally pushing you and urging you to continue going. And that's where a lot of people can feel like, why don't I have more willpower? Why don't I have more discipline? I know what I want to do, but I can't follow through. It's because you've got these two parts of you that are kind of trying to battle it out. And that feels very internally chaotic. Now, the other sort of vein is that we tend to, like, the other sort of vein, it can be that we're essentially having just a huge volume of food, but it doesn't necessarily have to be all at once. It doesn't have to be in this big rush state either. It can tend to be also almost like mindlessly snacking. But again, it's that consciousness of, I know that I'm full. I know that I'm not hungry, but you just continue to feel sort of compelled to continue eating. And you're trying to get yourself to stop, but you're like a little bit more, a little bit more. So it can sort of have this big heightened rush feeling, or it can also feel to a certain degree like mindless snacking. But what the sort of key part is, your intention there is like, I know that I should stop. I know that I'm pushing past what my body's asking for. I know this is in my mind. I'm just feeling like I'm almost driven by my impulses. That's really sort of like the crux of that binge pull.
I love it how you describe it, how it's like a little toddler being to tell you to keep going. And it's such a thing. It's because, like, for me, for so long, I didn't realize that, this might sound a little bit left field, but like, I didn't realize that other people also had voices in their head, especially in and around food. Like, I truly didn't know that. And then when I voiced that, I told someone, when I was going through my own healing journey of disordered eating, they were like, no, everyone does have that. And that's actually, it's quite normal. And then understanding and learning actually like what it is, the ego, all the things. So I think just explaining it in that way will really open a lot of people's eyes to like, hang on a minute, like maybe this is not normal what I'm doing right now. Maybe this is actually not how life is supposed to live. Because I don't know about you, but I've got a lot of clients who, have been struggling with disordered eating, an unhealthy relationship with food now for 50 years. Like,
Yeah.
and this is the thing, like it, and that's what people really, really need to know, is that like it doesn't have to be that way. And like you don't have to be very obsessive in order to get results. And you can heal from all of these things. But I think the most important thing is awareness. And that's why I love this conversation, especially, is because like when you get awareness, you get your power back. So this is so beautiful. So for people who are stuck with that little toddler, why? What are the main reasons? And I know, again, this is very broad, but I would love it if you could maybe pick your top tier, like the most common ones that you see, is why people get stuck in these cycles.
So the first one that I'll kind of touch on, and maybe I'll sort of speak a bit more to that parent-toddler analogy, because I think this can be one of the most pivotal things that I teach that really does shift our entire understanding of that internal push and pull battle of trying to battle through an urge, right? Because most people think they're resisting an urge. It's like, I just have to not binge. The way that I like to sort of understand this part of it is by understanding that, and this is the sort of the sciencey part that I didn't understand and I was not taught. And as soon as I did understand it, it really did unlock this degree of control to realize that you don't have to actually battle this, because there is a part of your brain essentially that when you've kind of been in a binge restrict cycle for some time, it becomes overactive, and that's your limbic system. And the limbic system is then tied to your nervous system, which is why binging tends to feel quite heightened, right? We're not sitting on the couch feeling super relaxed, like no worries in the world. Oftentimes we're anxious, we're stressed, we're overthinking about something, then something's triggered us, our partner's side-eyed us, and then all of a sudden we're wanting to run to a bag of Maltesers, right? So it's in these moments that our limbic system is quite heightened. And the limbic system is the part of us that is more impulsive. It's very quick to respond. It does sort of push us into that fight or flight state. And it is the part of us that there's a degree of like scarcity or fear that gets kind of triggered in that part of us. So when we do have a binge urge, that's the limbic system. So it's not, in sort of to give a bit of contrast, it's not your prefrontal cortex, which right now you and I are having this conversation. For any listener that's listening right now, that's you're listening with your prefrontal cortex, which is your motor control, it's your personality, it's your problem solving part of your brain. It's very rational, but this part of our brain tends to be a little bit slower. So if you think about it, almost like if there's a fire, who are the first on the scenes? It's like the paramedics, or it's like the firefighters, right? Like they're the people that arrive first. So essentially what happens when we get triggered or we have a binge urge, the person first on the scene is that toddler, is that limbic system, it's the impulsive part of us. And what a lot of people do, they feel that and they react. They just impulsively do something. So they'll just go to the piece of chocolate. And what we have to start realizing is that that's not actually you, right? That's not you. You are the prefrontal cortex. And I always say it again, to contrast, that this is the parent part of your brain. It is the more rational, it is the more calm, it is the more decisive. Like it almost sounds a bit more boring, but like that's actually you. And the reason people sort of end up feeling a lot of shame is that they're essentially making decisions that have consequences and ramifications and long-term outcomes from listening just to that limbic system, that toddler. And then they wonder, oh my God, hold on, that is totally not what I was actually wanting to do. That doesn't align with my values at all. And they get confused because they think, well, why do I hate myself so much that I can't be more disciplined? But in actual fact, all that's really happening is that you're letting the toddler be the first on the scene, and you're letting the toddler run the entire show, as opposed to what we need to start doing, which is seeing the toddler react, seeing the thoughts that pop up, feeling it in your body when you feel that, and letting your parent brain come to the table. And it will always come to the table. I have a 90-second rule with my girls. Letting that part of your brain come to the table takes about 90 seconds. So we have to actually see the reaction of the toddler, see it pop up, and be able to actually learn to settle ourselves, settle that toddler. If that's internal dialogue shifts, if that is deep breaths, if that is removing yourself from a situation for a moment, if that is literally just closing your eyes when you're on the tram, on the car ride home, like, coming home from work, and just trying to re-anchor within yourself, which is all sort of emotional regulation things that I teach. Being able to do that and letting your prefrontal cortex come to the table, and then you make a decision about what it is that you want to do. You might still turn to the food, but that first and foremost is something that, that is impulse control. That is learning that you are not just like a squirrel that's like scurrying some nuts, that like has no consciousness and deeper sense of thinking, right? We're human beings. We are so lucky to be able to not just be impulsive creatures. We have this high level thinking. We just need to learn how to tap back into that and use it. And that's where our choice comes in. And I always say that essentially control is bred by choice. You need to remember that we're always making choices. And when you realize that you're making choices and you have a choice to either react or respond, so you're letting the toddler run the show, or you allow to see the toddler and be the watcher, start then controlling your behaviors a bit more. That's how your control comes back. That's how, when we realize that you're always making choices, our control can return. So that's a very long-winded answer, but that's essentially the first thing that I think people need to actually understand, is that it's not about fighting your urges. It's about learning what they are, why they're there, and how to start working with yourself instead of battling. That's number one.
Yeah, I love that. It's so true, right? And I say that all the time. It's like we always have a choice. While yes, it's hard to break our patterns, it's absolutely hard to break our cycles. Abso-fucking-lutely. I'm not like discrediting that whatsoever. But at the end of the day, it's when we have that awareness piece and this education that you just shared, which is so beautiful, and I appreciate all of that. Is then we ultimately do get to make the decision and we do get to make the choice. So I know that's going to help so many people and really understand like what the fuck is going on in these situations. So I would love to know what the biggest mistakes are that people make. And I know you've already like alluded to the whole discipline willpower thing. Like I see that all the time, and you know, there's a lot of shame in and around that for sure. So I would love to know from your professional opinion, like what are the biggest mistakes that people make when they're trying to break free of these cycles?
Such a great question. So I definitely have a couple. So I think the first one would be restriction, right? And cutting out all the food that you actually love, and then wondering why you don't enjoy this healthy lifestyle, and then why you feel so inclined to hit the fuck up button or to binge and to go all out when you do have an open bag of Maltesers in front of you. You've essentially removed all the stuff that actually brings you a lot of joy and a lot of pleasure. And we are emotional creatures. We're not robots. We don't just operate from, like we need actual joy and satisfaction, and we need to have dopamine hits. And if you end up removing all the food that you love and all the carbs, all the sugar, and then you wonder why you don't have this control and discipline, you've put yourself in a really precarious position. And I think that's something that people can really, really forget, is that, even if you look at someone that you admire that has a lot of control, a lot of discipline in their life, they're doing great things, whatever, got a great physique, anything like that, you're assuming that they've got this elite sense of discipline and control, when in reality they've actually got great discipline and control, but they put themselves in really good situations so that they're not left to the whims of their emotions as much as what you are allowing yourself to potentially be. So first one would be restricting all of their favorite foods or cutting out foods that you love. And that's really where so the approach that I take is very three-pillared. And one of the pillars is making sure that your food approach actually does incorporate the foods that you love. And for sure, it can still be tailored to your goals. For some of my girls, weight loss is still a goal. Just stabilizing the weight might be a goal. Whatever your goals are, you can still eat the food that you love. The thing that people get caught in is then thinking that, well, no, I can't, because when I have some, I go all out. Okay, well, then that's where you need to heal your relationship with that food. And when you heal your relationship with food, yes, you can have a handful of Maltesers and you won't want to go back for seconds. And if you do, it'll be intentional and you'll know how to work it into your day as well. So the first one would definitely be, the restriction piece and going back to any kind of diet. The second one, sort of off the back of that, would definitely be after a binge, they then go straight back to restricting, right? So you're not only dieting, but every single time that you're binging or that you're doing something a little bit misaligned, you're like pulling back. What that does is it essentially, that toddler that I was speaking about before, that limbic system, you're essentially continuously reinforcing to this limbic system that it needs to be switched on. So it needs to be giving you these big urges. You're putting it into a further state of fear that you're going to restrict your favorite foods, which means that when you have them, it becomes very smart and it knows that you're having it now. Let's push her to have more, right? So you're wondering why you're so out of control, but it's because you keep removing that food. So golden rule for me and my girls is, if we do binge, if we have an emotional eating moment, we literally go back and we buy that same food, because a couple of days later, your limbic system will relax and you'll realize that it actually does not need to be hypervigilant around that.
Yeah, no, I love that all so much. And It's so crazy that we've been taught, and that's like the go-to behaviors of so many people. It's like, oh yeah, like I overate, so therefore I have to restrict. And, you know, all over social media, we're learning that, you know, you have to cut out this and you have to do this and sugar is bad. Like, it's so crazy to me how many questions that I get from my clients of being like, can I have this artificial sweetener? Like, is it okay if I have this, you know, this Diet Coke? Like, can I have this protein bar? Like, and it's like, it's so sad that that's what the world has done to us. And yeah, like it honestly breaks my soul. And that's why I love working with it in this space so much, is because really opening people's eyes is that you're absolutely right. Like, food is more than just fuel. Like, food is nourishment, food is satisfaction, food is family, food is fucking life, right?
Memories. Yeah.
Literally. And like, when you go into that restriction pattern, I always say this, it's like, well, you're not just restricting your food, you're saying no to all of those things. Just like you said, you're saying no to making memories with your best friends. You're saying no to going on holidays and absolutely living your best life, eating the pizza in Italy, all of the things. So it's like, of course you're going to feel very emotional, and of course you're going to feel like absolute shit. So it makes complete sense. So the other thing I really wanted to pull out in all of that is the relationship with food. You said heal your relationship with food. And I know I talk about this all the time, the importance of this. I want to know your opinion on the importance of this, because like, I know for a lot of people, there's a lot of people still putting with food freedom means I'm giving up my body goals. Healing my relationship with food means that I'm going to be a fat tub of lard sort of vibe. I'm going to be lazy. I'm going to be disciplined. I'm going to lose my discipline if I heal my relationship with food. So I would love to know your perspective in on that. Like, what does healing your relationship with food actually mean?
I love this question so much, because I think people think that there's two camps, right? They think that there's camp number one, which is like discipline, 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 the classic like meal plan, 10,000 steps. If you get 9,000, you're not disciplined enough. Like this very hard ass approach, which like, sure, if we're looking at bodybuilders that have specific goals, yes, like maybe part of that is required, right? But that's where I'll always say, like, we're not bodybuilders. We don't need to go that extreme.
I say that too.
Right? That is one camp. The other camp, then, I think, where people, which is where there's almost, what I notice is there's sort of sparked this degree of like fear in women now of like, accept your body no matter the size. Like, food freedom is have all of the foods, like pastries for breakfast every day. Like, you deserve all this. And it's very like no guidelines, like I should be able to eat everything kind of vibe. And I think that then, to a certain degree, can actually make some women that do want to feel really good in their skin, that do want to make like help themselves lose weight, that do want to get back to feeling incredible. It can actually make them feel a little bit confused as to like, well, should they just be embracing their bodies the way that they are, even if they don't feel happy? And so, and people kind of again forget it's the all or nothing mentality that people are adopting there, right? And what they have to start realizing is, I always say there's golden in the gray, and the gray area that we're forgetting is right between these two camps, where you actually do get to want to change your body. That's a beautiful thing. Self-discipline and having the discipline to do that is actually very, very loving. Like, you want to make yourself feel sexy and beautiful and be intimate with your partner again in a way that makes you feel incredible. Like, that's awesome. And you want to put on your favorite jeans and feel incredible and to be so proud of it. That's amazing. But that doesn't need to involve restriction. That doesn't need to involve self-beratement. That doesn't need to involve any of that. It also doesn't need to even involve a meal plan if you don't want it to. But you can still have guidelines that help you stay really healthy and that enable you to make really great choices that align with your values, right? And so, and without it being that you have to have a pastry every day. Like, people, if you watch my stories, like, you know, like I literally have the same kind of like wheat big protein oats for breakfast every day. I have banana on toast. It's like, I still have really healthy stuff. I still have my chicken and broccoli and my veg, like, but I also have like cookies thrown in and that kind of stuff. Just because I have food freedom doesn't mean that I will give myself freedom to literally eat everything that I see. To have food freedom and to heal your relationship with food, I think, is to understand that food is like what you said, Laura. It's not just fuel. It is pleasure and it's nourishment not only for your body, but for your mind, your emotions, your life, your family, your connections. And it's about knowing that you actually have a choice as to how you would like to fuel your body, depending on obviously your physique goals, and to be able to do that from a place of power and a place of like aligning with your values. And knowing that you can have, you know, that beautiful 80-20 where you're having some of the healthy food and you're also having some of the soul foods thrown in there. And there's a lack of rules. I've done it good, I've done it bad. You understand what feels good, and maybe what always use the word misaligned for you, depending on the way that you want to live your life and what that looks like. And I think that's where a lot of people, we tend to look external of ourselves for validation of like, am I doing the right thing? Am I on the right diet? As opposed to going, am I seeing progress in the area that I want to? Am I actually waking up every day and feeling excited to eat, excited to move my body? I truly think that's healing your relationship with food, right? But then your body, but then also yourself, right? They're so interlinked. It's being able to genuinely realize that you have this one life and that you actually get to use food to elevate that and to nourish the body that you have, and to just understand like how to use food in a way that truly makes you happy, and that also still aligns with the physique goals that you have as well, and that you're able to actually remain consistent, right? So it's actually, consistency feels effortless because you actually love the entire journey as well as getting to your goals. I think that's really that healed relationship with food.
Yeah, and like I love everything you just said in terms of, because like at the end of the day, like just having a pastry every morning for breakfast ultimately is not self-respect. That you're not nourishing your body. And like I'm in the same camp as you, right? Like right smack bang in the middle, because at the end of the day, like if we eat shit, we feel shit. And that's like the important thing that I think so many people need to understand. And I get it, because there's a lot of people, you know, that still do have lots of rules and restrictions in and around food. And like they're so afraid that they do give themselves permission to eat that food, then they'll just overeat it and they won't stop. So I definitely get it. And I understand where they're coming from. But then it's just like, look at all the people around you who, you know, are achieving their body goals, who look the way, quote unquote, like, you know, not that you want to, but like just, you know, who are modeling like a really healthy body and healthy life. And look how they're eating. They're eating the foods that they love. They're having the chocolate, they're having the nourish bowl, they're having the, you know, the steak, they're having the burgers, you know, they're having it all. And that's like, if that can really truly be your evidence to prove to you guys that like once you do give yourself permission to eat the foods that you really want, you actually don't want them. Because
I love that so much. You're so right. And just to graft onto that, Laura, like every client that I work with is always surprised from the get-go. I always have this when I speak about food and the sort of food pillar. So we have 3 pillars. First one's food. When we actually figure out what I call their gentle structure, so figuring out what their day on a plate, week on a plate looks like, if they were able to snap their fingers, no binge eating, what would that look like? And we sort of model that and get them starting to step closer towards that. Understanding that, you know, part of that is having a deliberate dessert. So we work in something that they love. And their goal for the first week is literally be able to have that every single night and practice not sort of seeing that toddler want more, and actually learning how to be like, cool, I'm actually going to have this again the next day, whatever. But the key part of that is usually by day 4, like there's this huge degree of like non-excitement. Why? Because the toddler now understands that like you actually have so much permission that you realize that you actually do not crave this every day. It's the fact that you were telling yourself that you couldn't have it, or you had this limiting belief that you couldn't have it, or if you had it, you would gain weight. When in actual fact, what was making you gain the weight was the fact that you weren't allowing yourself to have it. And then you had the entire 4-pack of Magnums instead of just being able to have the 4-pack throughout the entire week. So you absolutely can have these really beautiful, fun things. You can have the burger, you can have everything. It comes back to moderation. And if you're like, I can't have moderation, I'm not a moderation kind of person. Well, let's become one.
learn.
Like, let's learn. Exactly. Let's learn. It's competence. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I totally agree in all of that. Do you have any more mistakes that people make in this space that you wanted to share?
So I think another one that definitely is really prevalent with the women that I work with is that people will continue to telling themselves that it's just a food problem. It's just a food problem, right? Just food. I just need a better food plan. I just need to I just need to heal my relationship with food. And it's just like food. I need a food plan. I need you to tell me what to eat. Or like I need more structure. And
Tell me exactly what to eat.
Tell me exactly what to eat and I'll just eat it. And I always say, it's like, everyone listening to this right now, if I told you to write me a meal plan, you to write me a meal plan for my day on a plate, if you look at the kind of lifestyle that I have, the kind of body that I have, just write me down a pretty basic thing of what you'd ask me to eat. And I ask for it to be wholesome, nourishing, have some fun stuff thrown in there. roughly gauge a portion, you'd be able to do it. Like, you're a smart woman, you know what that looks like. Most people would be able to do that. And if not, then there's just a bit of education and literally you can start doing that like that. So it's not really the what that you need help with. It's the how, it's the follow through. And this is why I have a 3-pillared approach, where food's number one, we get that nice and ironed out. But once you actually have clarity over what that looks like, it's also tailored to your goals. Then it's about focusing on the other 2 pillars, which is mindset. And then the third one being your emotions. If you do not focus on these 2 areas, you will continue to go back down the same dieting routes. You will continue to overeat. You will continue to wonder, why do I have no discipline or willpower? It's just because you're not focusing on the other areas that 100% do matter. And the number one thing that I hear, and I'm sure you hear the exact same thing, Laura, is that, oh, I didn't realize how much of it was mindset. And they realize that so quickly, of like, whoa, I didn't realize that I had all these limiting beliefs. I didn't realize I had all of these food rules. I didn't realize that me self-berating myself and talking so negatively to myself was actually the reason that I was turning towards food. I didn't realize my confidence and my self-trust was eroded because like, people don't realize that until you're actually in the process of healing your relationship with food. And then all of a sudden it unlocks and you think, oh my God, this is the work that I haven't been doing, that now that I'm doing it, I'm getting wins on the board every day, right? So mindset is that second one. And then emotions, right? Actually understanding how to no longer use food as a numbing, soothing coping mechanism. And for sure, right? Food is comfort. Food is amazing. When I am lonely and I'm sad, 100%, I love a mini Magnum. It is amazing. But understanding what role I want food to play in those moments and what role my body and my mind and my life and myself do not deserve for it to play. So understanding, how do I make sure that I don't self-sabotage and just almost like placate, numb, soothe, try and plug this feeling of overwhelm or anxiety or uncertainty in my life with turning to food. And that's where people don't understand oftentimes, because they don't understand actually what's going on, again, neurologically and biologically in that moment. They feel like, again, they're fighting with themselves to not do something. But really, from an emotional perspective, there's just a part of you that wants to feel comforted, that wants to feel loved, and actually understanding how to, right, feel safe. How to actually be there for yourself in those moments, genuinely like a best friend. And we're not talking just positive self-talk here. We're also talking like, cool, I'm feeling this degree of like shame for having been quite snappy with my partner. Okay, how do I actually deal with this shame? What do I actually have to do in my other areas of my life? And this is where it sort of, kind of also morphs a little bit into life coaching and like relationship coaching, right? And you'd be the same, where it's like you actually start focusing on other areas of people's lives that are actually where they need the healing. And then people wonder why their urge to turn to food goes down. It's because you've actually resolved the thing that was causing you to want to use food. And so it's not just food. You have to start looking at your mindset and your emotions. And when you actually essentially navigate your binge urge from each of these lenses, and I always think about it like a triangle with my girls. It's like your head, your human, and your heart. When you actually focus finally on each 3 of those edges of the triangle, you've got this really, really solid pyramid, essentially. So when strong winds, when challenges come, when you feel emotionally turbulent, something happens within your family, whatever it looks like, you're not just going to go straight back to your binging ways of using food. You're actually going to feel like you understand, cool, okay, how am I just going to help myself through this? And that becomes your natural way of being once you've actually built up competence, which then builds up confidence with actually healing your relationship with food and then yourself.
Yeah, and I think it's so important to talk about this, is because like you see online, like you said, like there's so many nutritionists, there's so many exercise coaches, there's so many PTs of helping people do all these things, but they're not addressing like the mindset issue. And for a lot of women, and I'm speaking like purely from self-experience as well, like my own path is, we lack that self-security, we lack that our sense of worth, we lack that, being okay to be ourselves. So then we're always, like you said, outsourcing every decision, looking for external validation, telling me what to do, ultimately because we don't trust ourselves to go within and ultimately feel safe with being ourselves. And I see it time and time again, is like women are looking for this thing to, give them this confidence, to give them this sense of, validation, to give them this sense of ultimately feeling good enough. And they all believe that they think they need to change their body in order to get that. But deep down, what we need to do is work in on the mindset piece, fucking accepting for who we are, learning how to be safe in who you are and allowing that to be your fucking superpower. And this has taken me probably like 29 years to learn, but I'm to the point now where I'm like truly being like, I'm so fucking proud of being me, but it has taken me a fucking long time to get here. But I can say it like wholeheartedly. It's like, I don't care what my body looks like now. Like, I don't care how much fat I have, how much muscle I have. Like, it's a non-issue because it doesn't really matter anymore. But once it was, my life depended on it. I would only feel enough if I was a certain size. I would also go to food. I would also go always externally outside of me because I lacked that, knowing of actually what I needed to do in order to actually break free of all this shit.
100%. I love that so much, Laura. And what I also hear from that is the understanding that I was chatting about this with the client recently. This is where we need to actually start looking at your life and start realizing that the way that you look and your relationship with food and that part of your life, it's a facet of who you are, right? It's like it's a little like shard in this like crystal, whatever. It's like you are so much more than what you look like. You are so much more like when you, right. And I always use this example. It's like when someone walks into a room, right? If you're like at a dinner party and someone walks into the room and they look amazing, your first thought, and if your first thought is this, then like that's a little glimmer of like there actually needs to be some work there. But our first thought, right? Our first thought doesn't tend to be like, oh my God, I wonder if she's a size 6 or a size 8 because she looks hot, right? It tends to be like, holy shit, like she's like magnetic. She looks gorgeous. Like it's a vibe, like it's her energy. And sure, like her physique is part of that, which is why like awesome. Like we all want to feel sexy and feel great in our skin. That's great.
We're here for it too.
We're here for it too, 100%. But it's like, it's who that person is. And I think people really forget sometimes that like, even when we speak to healing your relationship with food, it's not just so that you like feel great in your skin and in your body. That's part of it. But it's that you actually can start showing up in these areas of your life. And I always say it's like you feel like a badass, right? It's not because anyone else thinks that you're a badass. It's that you feel like one. You walk into a room and you're like, whether I'm a size 12 or I'm a size 8, or I'm size 16, size 20, size 6, whatever it is, you're proud of the woman that you are and the woman that you're becoming because you're really confident in your approach. And I think that's where, when we speak to like the online space, and I think this is where, I do feel for people that actually are looking for a coach in the online space now, because it is hard to kind of gauge like who actually knows their shit and who doesn't, because I feel like coaches are popping up everywhere. But like, if you're someone that's actually wanting guidance, looking for someone who's like a coach or a specialist or like a mentor in their space, that's like not only just going to like tell you what to do, but they're actually going to help you step into your power, and they're going to help you build your confidence in yourself to know what feels right for you. Because as much as someone can give you a plan, there might be areas of that you feel a degree of resistance to, and you might need support in actually dealing with that resistance. So if you feel as though for some reason you're like self-sabotaging still and you don't understand why, you need someone in your corner to actually help you build your confidence to understand yourself in that moment, why you're actually finding it hard, and actually can support you. And I always say, like, be your person. You need someone. And if you're looking, like, some people just do want a bit of a plan, that's fine. But if you notice that like that doesn't feel like enough, it's because your human actually needs support. The human that you are, there's some complexities there, and it's not because you're a shit human. And you actually said this before, where you were like, like if shit, you feel like shit, reminding you that like that doesn't mean you're a shit person. Like if you're struggling to eat, you're eating like shit at the moment, like you're not a shit person. You're just noticing that there's going to be some self-sabotage stuff in there. And as soon as you have a couple of aha moments and you understand what's going on there, you can unblock yourself. The resistance is only there right now because it's been there for a while. We can unblock that.
Oh, I love that so much. And like, you're so right in terms of the support. And that's why I'm so big on it myself, is because like I've been through multiple coaches now and worked with so many people, and that's why I honestly have created, like, in my coaching, is like the biggest part of it is the support element. Because like I've been through the experience of, getting the macros and getting the diet plan, and then like crying to myself that I'm going over my calories and just being like, why the fuck am I so hungry? Like, what the fuck is going on? But because I didn't have like the right support that I needed, ended up self-sabotaging and just in this endless cycle of like nothing ever works, I try so hard, and all of the story. So I love that you talk about that as well. And I think the biggest part in it, all of it, is like that embodiment piece and what you said of like making sure you're finding the right mentor and someone who actually has the experience under their belt, and I think most importantly has been through it. And you probably get this a lot as well, and it's like I sit down and, you know, with in the coaching and things, and then they're just like, you just like get it. Like, how do you get it? And it's just like, yeah, because I've fucking been through it. Like, I know exactly how it feels. And I'm on the other side. Like, I'm in this space now where I have so much confidence, all the things. I know how to do nutrition, know how to do exercise. Like, I've got this. And because I was where you are once were, like, I fully get it. So what you're saying to me isn't weird. It's so normal, and it's so okay if you feel that way. So let's give you the strategies and the awareness to really help you move through that. And I think that's why you're so successful and so good at what you do as well, is because you've also fucking been there as well. In
100%.
comparison, sorry, I don't want to diss like PTs and stuff, but a PT that starts an online coaching thing that's been doing it for a year, I'm like, babes, you know nothing.
100%. And this is where I always say, it's like,
I feel sorry for people.
Absolutely. And I think this is where people, it is a bit of a pity, because people, and, you know, with the best of intentions, will go to nutritionists, dietitians, psychologists, psychiatrists. They'll go see a GP and get recommended the gastric sleeve. Like, they'll go and they'll ask these questions, and in the hopes that, like, you know, what do I do? And they'll be told you have a binge eating disorder. Then they then put this big stigma and label on themselves and go, oh my God, I've now got this disorder. And that's why I don't ever like using that term, because I think it does more harm than good. And it doesn't, you know, honestly, it's just a habit, a behavior that we can get out of. And I truly, truly believe that, no matter how long you've been suffering with it for. But the reason, I was going to say that this is where, you know, people, they end up creating these limiting beliefs that, like, I've tried everything. It still doesn't work for me. But what you actually have tried, with the best of your intentions, you've gone to the quote unquote the right people that you believe might be able to solve this food problem, because again, you're thinking that it's just food. And those people are fantastic in their correct domains, right? They're fantastic for that, right? If I want to actually go see someone to analyze my diet, help me sort of figure out micronutrients, macronutrients, how to actually give my body all the stuff that it needs, sure, I might go to a dietitian or a nutritionist and be like, can you actually have a look at the food that I'm having and maybe give me a plan that might have, you know, a bit more well-rounded, whatever it might be. Cool, they're going to do that, they can do that. But when it comes to like binge eating and being able to help me regain my sense of self-confidence, my sense of self-trust, all the things, that's not the right person. And this is why, right, a lot of people, as I mentioned, right, they'll have a look at the food lens, they'll then go see a nutrition dietitian, then they'll be like, oh, maybe it's my mindset, then they'll go see a psychologist or a psychiatrist. And then again, those people are great in their rightful domains, but then in terms of your relationship with food, they might not really be able to understand your crazy food thoughts that you've been having, or why you've eaten 3 packets of cereal in 12 minutes. Like, they won't understand that. And they might just say, okay, well, try have a bit more cereal and try and, you know, take some big deep breaths. That's helpful, but not really helpful. And then you might be like, okay, I feel like it's more emotional, right? You then might go see a counselor or therapist, and they're going to sort of chat you through the emotions. They'll ask you about some trauma, and they'll try and sort of unpack the self-sabotage. But again, they might not really understand your limiting beliefs, and then they may not understand your food lens again. So this is where there's, again, a huge lack of integration in each 3 of those areas, where people feel like they're just jumping around, and then they start internalizing it, going, is there something wrong with me? Because I can't find the answer, right? And this was, it all comes from what you were saying before, like a place of full embodiment, where I know what that feels like. I know how much that erodes your sense of self when you start thinking like, I'm this really confident badass in all these other areas of my life. I have a great relationship. I've got an awesome corporate job. I've got a partner that adores me. I'm so loved by my family. I've got great kids for some people, right? And then you look at this one area of your life with food, and you're like, what the hell is wrong with me? I cannot get control. And people think that it's a them thing, when in actual fact, it's the fact that you've just been kind of swept up in this whirlwind of diet culture. Your Instagram feed is telling you to, like, that eggs are bad and that oatmeal is going to make you gain cellulite and all this crap. And it's just like, people don't know where to turn anymore. And that's essentially the work that I do, right? Is about learning how to integrate each 3 of those lenses, so that it actually all starts making sense, and you can genuinely get back in control and know not just the what, but the actual how.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think another thing that we need to pull in from that as well is like a thing that I see a lot is people like jump to jump to jump to jump, and they don't like anchor into one thing and stick to that for a long period of time. And like, I think about the clients that I've helped in the past, it's like, you know, we can get great transformations in 12 weeks, but then I compare my relationships with the girls that I've been working with for like 2.5 years now. It's just a different conversation. And I think that's like a really important thing that people need to get. And I've also made this mistake in my business coaching career, like jumping around business mentors as well, is because like, and I love that you say that, is like, find your person, because like, once you stick to one thing and one person, is they understand who you are, they understand your patterns, they understand your mistakes, so they can help you navigate things a hell of a lot easier. And a lot of the time, like, a 12-week container is so beautiful and I do love it, but at the same time, it's like we're still just getting to know each other, you know. So and we can thank diet culture for that as well, is because, you know, so many people believe that, you know, you can just fix something in 12 weeks. You can just heal your relationship with food in 12 weeks.
12 kilos, 12 weeks.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Lose weight in 12 weeks. But then we have to like wake up to ourselves for a minute. Like, we've been doing this to ourselves, say, you know, 20, 25, 30, 50 years. 12 weeks is not going to do anything. It's not going to, you know, it's like you can start and all the things, but it's like, if you truly want success, it's like you have to have these realistic expectations and being like, I'm fucking in this for the long haul. I'm committed. I'm coming from a place of, it's absolutely going to work out for me if I stick to one thing and stay there. The only way it's not going to work out is if I fucking give up. So
I love that so much. I always say your success is inevitable.
Yeah.
Right. Your success is inevitable when you actually choose to find the right approach, have the right attitude, and find your person. Your success is inevitable. Exactly. And you actually commit. And I think, right, this is where I can already see some people having this thought right now who might be listening, of thinking like, oh my God, but I don't want to like do this forever. Like, I want to solve this. And it's more that you actually have to solve it, but then learn how to stay committed to the journey of genuinely loving yourself so much that you actually never want to go back to diet culture. And the thing is, like, if you actually take the right approach, you are going to so fall in love with how incredible you feel and how amazing you like actually love to take care of yourself mentally, emotionally, physically, that you're not going to want to stop, like, because you're still eating the burgers, you're having the Kit Kat chunkies, you're doing all of that stuff. So it's like, why would you want to go back to diet culture where you're eating like keto avocado mousse? Like, that's not right. Like, we don't need to do that anymore. And when you take the right approach and you have the right attitude and you genuinely commit, it's not full of resistance. And I was chatting to someone about this yesterday, where it's like, you actually get to be excited about this. Like, it doesn't actually have to be this like doom, gloom, oh my God, I've got to do all this deeper, heavy work. It's like, this literally could, like, if you do it the right way, this gets to completely elevate your entire life, to the point that like your sex life gets better, your relationship with yourself, and like getting out of the shower and like putting on your underwear, like, you get to be like, I'm so freaking proud of the woman that I'm becoming, like, no matter what body fat percentage you are. And like, that gets to be your life. Like, and people hesitate so much on going all in on themselves. When you actually go all in and you back yourself, and you genuinely say that, like, I'm fucking done with like under eating and over exercising and like feeling lethargic and then like having like juice cleanses every 6 weeks. It's like, when you're actually done with that and you're ready to genuinely like fucking love your life, like, that transformation is exciting. Like, it's not full of this like, oh my God,
it's more than exciting.
It's life-changing, right?
Literally.
And it's scary, but it's like, anything you do is scary. Like, but you know, if you want new results, you've also got to do something new. And yeah, I could just riff on that forever, so I'll just stop there. I say this, right, because I know what it feels like to wait, and then all of a sudden, right, people end up holding so much shame because they think, oh, I just wish I'd done this 20 years ago. And it's like, yeah, but it's the classic saying, right? It's like, the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is now. It's like, you may as well just start now and be grateful for the tapestry that has been your life, because everything that you actually now know about diet culture, you'll eventually know how to get yourself out of it by going through, you know, having someone to teach you whatever, and having a guide. And then, you know, just think, like, you healing your relationship with food now, it's gonna heal it for your kids, it's gonna heal it for your husband, it's gonna heal it for the generations. It's like, the buck actually gets to stop with you now, and that gets to be a fantastic thing.
Yes, that just like lights my soul on fire. Like, the thought of like, I actually spoke about this in like a couple of podcast episodes. Actually, it's just like the thought of like not passing down bad body image or passing down a poor relationship with food to my daughter one day is like, that's life. That's
That's everything.
Exactly.
It's everything.
Yeah. And that's how powerful this stuff really can be when you get it right. So I
Mm.
love all of this. I want to circle back to, I know there's a lot of people in the ship that are struggling with the type of quote unquote binge eating in terms of they love to save their calories during the day so that they can eat a lot at night in one sitting without the guilt of going over their calories. So if someone is doing this, what would you say to them and how would you help them move through this pattern?
Great question. So if you're doing that right now, just know that it's okay that you've been doing that for a while. It's okay if that's something that feels as though, oh, but I always do this. I've always done this. It's okay. But also just reminder that like good things come when things change too. You want to change in outcomes. If you want to stop binging, something's going to change, right? So let's just change it. So now that we've kind of gotten that out of the way, I think this is where we want to, like, the question that I always pose to someone is, well, why are we just giving you all of this joy and pleasure in the evening? Don't you want to have joy and pleasure throughout the day as well? And why are you then restricting yourself when it comes to breakfast and lunch and then afternoon snacks? Why are you only giving yourself permission to have this huge influx of amazing, beautiful food and calories in the evening? Like, why not have it earlier on? And then I know, right, like if we just let that settle for a second, oftentimes the next thing that tends to pop up is that, well, what if I do that and then I binge anyway? Right? Like,
later, yeah.
right, I'm going to be hungry later. Okay, fair. But what you'll notice is that as soon as you actually start dispersing your calories, or if you're not focusing on calories as your portions across the span of your day, what you will notice is that you are not going to be as hungry later in the evening. So your limbic system as well, from the scientific part of it, is going to be more relaxed. It's not going to be giving you these huge hyperactive urges. Why? Because you've actually fed it. You've actually given yourself proper nourishment. So your body is a smart thing. It knows that you've done that earlier in the day.
Yeah.
But then this is where we also want to, and this is a really key mindset shift, is understanding that, you know, if we're, you know, if just looking at your day holistically before it starts, if I was going to tell you that today you're not going to binge, 100% chance you're not going to binge, how would you eat throughout the day for a nourished, happy, present, freaking amazing day where you're going to bed and you're feeling so good, you've had all the foods that you loved? What would your day on a plate actually look like? Like that version of you that is so freaking happy, how would she eat if she was not binging, right? You'd be like, well, she's got like 2 eggs on toast for breakfast with avocado and some feta. Then she's got like lunch and it's like a bagel with blah, 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 right? Okay, well, if that version of you is not binging and that's how she's eating throughout the day, there's no wonder why then you're, you know, waiting all your calories in the evening and then you're binging. And then, right, you're not doing what this binge-free version of you would be doing. Right. So you actually have to start visualizing yourself as this version of you, like the version of you that is so healthy and has this great relationship with food. She's not saving all her calories for the evening. So if you want to actually become her, you actually have to start acting like her, which means the first step is actually starting to not backweight your calories, start eating a little bit more wholesomely and making sure then finally that each of your meals, each of your snacks hit the spot, right? We're not just having like protein oats. If you freaking hate protein oats, stop having them. Don't eat them, because then like naturally you're gonna be having all of this like little rabbit food throughout the day, and then you're waiting to have this huge big Mexican bowl whatever for dinner, and you're placing this huge expectation that this Mexican bowl is going to be everything and more that you've been imagining it to be, which unfortunately is probably going to fall pretty short because you're still going to be left with the rest of the stuff that's happening in your life anyway from an emotional level. And then it gets to 9 p.m, the kids are in bed and you want to go hard on the Kit Kat junkies, right? It's like, again, it's like we actually have to start preempting and going, okay, can I actually start balancing and finding a new equilibrium with my food so that then I actually feel right more rational when the evening comes to be able to make better choices. So if you do have a binge urge, okay, well, we're going to feel very rational and be able to actually manage it because you've set yourself up and put yourself in a great position to be able to make a great decision. Unfortunately, if you're really undernourished and then you have a binge urge, okay, well, it's going to be really hard to manage that.
Yeah, for sure. I absolutely like love the fact that you said you have to start acting as your binge-free version of you now. I literally had that same conversation last night in terms of when like it's that whole piece of like people think, you know, you set goals to like reach the goal, but at the end of the day, like you set goals to change the version of you. Like you have to change who you are being on a daily basis in order to actually achieve that goal. And that's the difference between a sustainable goal and one that's just like oh, I'm going to restrict myself to get to the goal, but then everything goes out the window because I didn't actually change who I was being. And that's the biggest piece is people don't understand they want these things, but yet they're not showing up as having those things now and acting and making the decisions. And if you're not doing that now, then you're not going to get there, because how are you going to become a binge free person if you're not acting in that way right now? So
I love that so much. I love how you articulated that. And this is where I always say, right? People say, you know, we hear it all the time, like binge free streaks. Right? I see a lot of coaches come like, the client win binge free streaks, and that is awesome. And I'm so celebrating that for every single one of those people that I see. But my lens is that I don't want you to just have a binge free streak. Like what I hear in that is like a degree of almost white knuckling, where it's like I've gotten 12 days, right? Yeah, and it's coming back to like, you need to actually learn how to have a binge-free life, how to be a binge-free person, and that means that you're actually increasing you're closing the skills gap, because right now all that there really is between you binging and you being binge-free is a skills gap of learning how to actually have the right approach, right? Control your process. And when you have a skills gap, you then need to increase your competence in a couple of areas. And when you increase your competence, you become more confident within yourself that you can do it. So, you know, and the work that you and I are doing, Laura, it's genuinely about like building someone up so that they can stand on their own 2 feet, right? It's not about having a plan, here going your way, because what happens after that, right? And a lot of the girls that I coach, they've gone through other programs before, and those programs have not worked. Maybe they worked for a certain amount of time, but then afterwards they've fallen back into old habits, which, you know, can happen for some people. That's so fine. But oftentimes it happens because the actual root cause was not resolved. They followed a plan. Maybe the plan was really good as well, like not dissing that. But then their mindset was not changed. They still have all these limiting beliefs. They still have a lot of food rules that have built up. And then they have no idea how to emotionally regulate when life gets challenging. So every time they come home from work and the kids are really stressful, they're still going towards food. So it's like those things have to be resolved. And when you become the kind of person that is built up and you actually understand yourself and you actually have had someone to be able to support you in that journey, you actually are so confident within yourself that you're like, cool, okay, literally the worst thing could happen to me, but I know that, cool, my tendency might be to go lean on food, but if that was to happen, I've got my own back and I know what to do from that. Like, that's a resilient person.
Absolutely. And I think another important thing to add on into that, all of it, is I think a lot of females, we just need to learn how to be a little bit more self-compassionate.
Yeah.
And I think that's like when I learned that, because type A, you know, perfectionist, all the things, like running from the fear of failure my whole life, all of the stories that we had attached onto that. From that moment when I learned that, instead of shaming myself and instead being like, come on, Loz, it's okay that you did that. Like, and it opens this opportunity for you to be able to move yourself forward instead of staying stuck. Because as soon as we start judging ourselves and start going down ultimately into that rabbit hole, it's very hard to crawl ourselves back out of that. So I think all of that is so super important for someone to really heal throughout their journey.
Great. I think with that as well, like with self-compassion, people think they need more self-discipline, but you actually need more self-compassion, right? It's like you need to be able to, yes, have discipline. Discipline is fantastic, something you cultivate. Absolutely. We need to have a bit more grit and all the things, but you need to balance that with also understanding that you are a human. Like you're a human that has these really complex emotions that, you know, and even when we speak to self-sabotage, right? It's like self-sabotage is actually self-love just done very, very, very ineffectively, right? Like when you're self-sabotaging, right? Like there's a part of you that's actually trying to love yourself and comfort yourself and numb yourself because some part of you doesn't want you to feel uncomfortable. It's self-love just in a really kind of toxic way, and unfortunately goes against a lot of your sort of higher active thinking and values. So we can actually have this compassion for ourselves to be like, oh, okay, this is a really frustrating behavior and habit that I have, but it's only because there's some kind of thing getting caught right now. So can I actually just, again, become a bit more confident, upskill myself a bit so that I stop doing that? Like you're a human that can grow, evolve, and change. You're designed for that. So you may as well actually learn how to evolve and realize that it's not a you thing. It's just a behavior thing that we can actually get you out of.
Absolutely. Build the skills. That's why I'm like constant reading.
Yes.
Like, guys, you're not there yet because you're just a little bit shit and you just need to get a little bit better. And that's okay.
100%. 100%. It's very Hormozy-esque thinking,
Yeah,
right? So like
literally.
just be a bit shit and that's okay. And we just get better.
Literally. Don't take it personal and just learn from your mistakes.
100%. Yeah, absolutely.
To wrap all of this up, it's been such an amazing chat. What would you say? What advice would you give to your younger self who was stuck in a binge restrict cycle right now?
I would say that two things. I'd say first thing is that you actually don't know how many lives you're going to change by working through this. And that obviously applies for me, but it also applies for every other woman as well, right? Like yes, I always say to girls, like, you are the most important person in your life, but also this is about you, but it's kind of also not about you. It's actually so much bigger than you. And if you realized just the ripple effect that you're actually going to have, you actually need to recognize, I get goosebumps as I say this, but you realize
I'm like,
that,
oh my God, this is fucking phenomenal.
but right, we're not realizing that like you have a sense of duty to every other woman that you're ever going to be in contact with, every other man you're going to be in contact with, your husband, your kids, your son-in-law, like you have a sense of duty to actually take care and heal this part of yourself in your life. And when you don't, like you're actually, you're not actually being a positive contributor. And I believe that it's our duty to actually show up as the best versions of ourselves, stop actually giving out just the rest of ourselves. And when we actually choose to do that healing, yeah, it's about you, but it's also not really about you. It's about everyone else in your life that you love. And it's about, if you feel like you don't have the motivation to do it for yourself, okay, well, do it for the people in your life that you love, that you take a bullet for. Take a bullet and actually heal this relationship with food so that you can actually get going on that. And I didn't realize that at the time. And I wish I could tell myself that the version of me that was struggling, I wish that I could tell her to get on top of it sooner, because I unfortunately eroded a relationship. I, disconnected from my family, and I missed out on about 8 years of incredible memories that I genuinely was not privy to because I was so wrapped up in this. But then realizing that, I also, being compassionate towards myself and every woman that thinks that, I'm too late, I've spent too much time in diet culture, it's all part of the tapestry. You can change now, and all of that is actually going to allow you to have the fuel to then change your future now. So it's all like, this is the perfect time. Like, just the only thing that I would then say from that is, like, don't hesitate, back yourself, because your success actually is inevitable. Just don't give up. And it's you only fail if you give up, right? Just don't give up. There is a light at the end of the tunnel. And if you feel as though there's not, get someone in your corner who actually believes in you enough for the two of you. Right?
Wow. How beautiful is that? Holy shit. I just need to
Yeah.
That is such a beautiful way to end the episode, because it's like, I just resonate with that so much, because I was exactly the same, like, wasted. I don't want, self-compassion, I know, but at the same time, I'm like, I wasted so many years of my early 20s just being so fixated on food and my body and trying to change it and hating myself and all of the things. And you're so right in that. It took, I did lose a lot of memories. I lost, I remember 2 years ago when I went to Bali for the first time, when I actually had food freedom. Any time before that, I was like, oh no, I can't eat anything because it's not healthy enough. Oh my God, I have to stock up at the buffet. So then, because I can't eat anything all day because there's going to be no healthy options. All the shit that I missed out on. And it was for what I know now, because, build the skills and have all the knowledge and all the things, it's absolutely doesn't have to be that way. But just to put it into context and kind of zoom out and look at it as a whole is really eye-opening, I think. So thank you so much for sharing everything, that in particular, but also everything else that you've shared today. I know it's going to help so many people. So thank you for coming onto the podcast. If people want to find you, where do they go?
So I'm ready_with_Sheri, Ready with Sheri on Instagram. And I also have my own podcast, which is just the Ready with Sheri podcast as well, where there's just heaps of episodes with free resources that you can come and listen and come change your life. Yeah.
Yes, love it. Well, thank you, everyone. Thank you for being here. Love you always. And I will see you guys, or you will hear me in the next episode. Bye. Number one challenge that all my clients face before we start working together is a lack of clarity on how much and what to eat to lose weight. Often they are making two huge mistakes: constantly trying to skip meals or eat under 1600 calories. Secondly, only allowing themselves bad foods like chocolate on the weekend, but end up binging, all to tell themselves they're going to start again on Monday. If you feel like you have tried every diet under the sun and still can't figure out what to eat to achieve your weight loss goals, take my free 2-minute quiz. You can find the link in the show notes down below, and it will help you figure out exactly what you're doing wrong with your nutrition and exercise, and exactly what to do to fix it, so that you can finally be confident in your body and achieve your weight loss goals.